Oh, am I? Hang on a second. Why is that? There we go. Ha, that's funny. I tell you. Okay, now I'm going to go live on FB. Yay! Let's do it. Okay. And we are live. So welcome to everyone. Welcome to a special episode of Let's Talk Horses. I think this is the first one I've ever done on the road. And it's very cool because both myself and my special guest today are in the same place. We're both in Prague, and we're both here to attend the annual Global Foundation of Access Consciousness with Gary Douglas and Dane here. So, blah, blah, blah. First of all, let me welcome my very special guest, Miss Alison Cox. Thank you for being here with me again.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here. This is terrible.
This is terrible. Our lives. I know. I put a post on Facebook. I'm like, I'm heading to Europe for a month of change. Like, because people are like, oh, you go to Europe for a holiday. And I'm like, no, I'll be working here the whole time. But literally my job is like attending and contributing to these classes that are really created to create change and bring change to the world. So I'm like, my life sucks. Like I signed off the post on Facebook, like life sucks. I don't know how I manage this. Oh.
It's a tough life, but somebody's got to live it,
Someone's got to do it. And so, yeah, we both arrived in Prague yesterday. You from Saudi Arabia, me from Australia. What was the trip from Saudi like? Is it far or was it long or?
It's only about a 6-hour flight, even though, well, 7. I had to take 2. I had to go to Dubai first and then here, but it wasn't too bad. Not like from the States.
Or from Australia, where I calculated it was 30 hours door to door. So I left home and arrived here 30 hours later. But what I was thinking was if this was like, I don't even know how long ago, let's say 50 years or 100 years or something like that, it would take you months to travel this far. You'd be on a ship for weeks at a time. You'd probably get really sick and you'd probably like maybe die even. So I'm like, I probably shouldn't complain so much about how far away Australia is from everything, considering the level of transport we have available to us now. Right. We're not in horse and carriage anymore. We didn't get to Prague and actually have to get in a horse and carriage to get to our accommodations. So there you go.
Unfortunately.
I know. That would kind of be cool as well. I probably wouldn't mind being on a ship for a little while, but anyway, I digress. So welcome back, Alison. I think you're my first repeat guest so far along this journey. So lots of first time on the road, first time with a repeat guest. And I want to dive straight in. I mean, we just talked about your journey here, which was from Saudi. And in Saudi, you were facilitating a conscious horse, conscious rider class. So why don't we just dive right in? Like, how was that for you? Give us some juice.
Some juice. Oh my gosh, it was so great. It was basically like a love fest with horses. There was just beautiful people there and beautiful horses all over the board, like some that were much older and not the show horses, and then some that were the, big, beautiful fire-breathing dragon Arabian horses. And I was just like, wow. And speaking of, difficult things, just a few years ago, like even women in Saudi Arabia wouldn't have been able to come to this class. But Saudi is changing so much. And I don't know if my family probably thinks I'm crazy for going to these places, but going there it's just such a gift. It's the desert. You would just think hot, dry. What do you do there? But the energy in the land there is like, wow. And I'm just, that's the words I can muster at the moment.
Cool. Yeah. And I mean, we called this podcast, or the kind of the subject or topic of this is actualizing the impossible. And I think that is so cool to look at, like, how much change has come about on this planet in recent times, like in our lifetime, definitely, and even like more sooner than that even. Like, it's really been, and I would also love to credit Access Consciousness for a lot of the change that goes on in the places in the world where we get to go and facilitate these classes. And if you're watching this podcast and you sort of stumbled across it and you don't know a lot, Access Consciousness is this amazing thing. I never know quite how to describe it, but it's this amazing force in the world, I want to say, that kind of trickles change everywhere it goes. And part of the access consciousness umbrella of classes is this thing called Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, which Alison and myself actually are both facilitators of. We're fortunate enough to get to travel the world and facilitate these classes where we have horses there as like our co-facilitators, basically, that we get to work with and explore consciousness through the eyes of a horse, basically, and them showing us things and us showing them things. So, you know, since people from the Middle East and those regions of the world have started attending access classes and invited the energy of access into that region of the world, so much has been changing for them. So also just to credit and acknowledge, you know, Gary Douglas, the founder, and Dane here, the co-creator of Access Consciousness, and yeah, just this force of change that it puts into the world.
Absolutely. I mean, I love what we're talking about. And before this podcast, you know, actualizing the impossible, I was like, my God, I was ADHDing it, autisming it, whatever. I'm like, there's this and this, and we could even start like, who knows where. But speaking of Saudi, like, and access tools, and Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, but I think the first time I even got introduced to really the world of possibly going to Saudi Arabia, I was invited there in like 2016 maybe, but I was definitely, I tried all of my might to go. I wasn't allowed to go unless I had a business visa and a male escort or permission or something like that. And, you know, it was just impossible. I even like text Dr. Dane here. I was like, I like had to go. I was like, can you please do something magical so I can go on this date? And he's like, done. However, I didn't go on that date. So one of the things, you know, about actualizing the impossible is having no expectations for when it shows up, just that it will show up. And so after that, I ended up going to I facilitated a foundation class in London. And, you know, only 2 people showed up, the host and like 2 people. I'm like, do I do it? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. And those 2 people ended up being 2 women, beautiful women from Saudi Arabia. I'm like, cool. I'm like, okay, so if you could have anything out of this class, what would it be? They're like, you know, one of the things we'd really like is to be able to drive in Saudi Arabia. I'm like, well, oh, okay, I can't figure that one out. But since you're asking, let's just throw it out there. One of the cool things is you can ask and eventually you're going to receive what you're asking for. So I'm like, okay, everything that doesn't allow that, POC and POD, if you don't, you know, the POC and POD thing is a clearing statement. You can go to theclearingstatement.com if you don't know it. But we asked for it, POC and PODed all the stuff that wasn't going to allow it, and then just kind of like forgot about it. 2 months after that class with these potent ladies, women were able to drive in Saudi like it was no big deal. Like, yeah, no, I was just like, what? 2 months later after absolutely no. So it was just a miracle and just a testament to asking and receiving. And from then until now is night and day, like in that country even.
So when was that? Because I remember someone talking about this and I didn't realize it was your foundation that had, because this kind of story trickled around about how this thing came up and how it changed. When was that? What year?
Gosh, I'm going to get it wrong because I can't remember stuff, but maybe 3 or 4 years ago, before COVID. So always at a couple years.
Yeah. It was like PC, pre-COVID times. I don't know, whenever that was, however many years ago. And I love what you said there about like, because actualizing the impossible, like there's so many things that go along with it where people are like, well, what is the impossible? What's that going to look like? But where you've really sort of so eloquently put that if you're willing to ask for something and then just leave it in the hands of the universe, like almost let go of control. Because I mean, looking at something like women being able to drive in Saudi, it's not like, you know, most people are like, okay, we need to petition the government, we need to, you know, blah blah blah, we need to have someone high up to back us, and like whatever that looks like through the political system. But it like it's this exploration of this ask and receive, and being willing to put your ask out there and then just let it go, right? Like not having this preconceived idea of when it should show up, how it should show up. And that kind of gives the universe the space to start to actually pull the strings, open the doors, and make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And allow you, like, everybody has different capacities, different potencies, different things that they're uniquely capable of doing and being. And then so you have all of these. If you were to ask for something, some of those things that would show up were actions that only you could take to actualize this thing, like uniquely between you and the government. So, you know, the ladies, the people, the fathers, the men in this particular story, like each person took that action that actualized this huge change as if by magic.
Wow.
Yeah. Just,
and you know, when you're willing to ask for something in that way, like that way where, like what you guys did in that class, where it was like, oh, and I love that question when I start a class. I always ask that. It doesn't matter what class it is. If you could have anything out of this, what would it be? So I wonder, like, as one tool for people to take away from listening to this podcast, like, what if you woke up every day and asked, like, if I could have anything out of today, what would it be? And just be willing to ask for something that, I don't know, you get a sense that it might be time now to ask for. Because, you know, even with you three ladies and your host in that room, it's almost like then it sends this trickle out to everyone else that has that ask. And it starts to like grab the energy of all of those people that are on that same wavelength or same journey, and everyone then gets to contribute to that.
absolutely.
Actualizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the things I asked anytime I go out to the horses too, like, okay, you know, not you, sometimes if I could have anything out of this, what would it be? But more like, okay, what can show up that I've never considered possible before every trip out there? And because I know that if I have a specific thing that I want to do and achieve with my horse or any horse, that's not going to happen. And my horse is really, I mean, it might. And also, if it doesn't, when you ask the broader question, you usually get even bigger than what you were asking for or what the first you know, target was. So yeah. And I know that if I go set out to do something new with my horse, or I saw like a video and I want to try this new thing and I try to do it exactly like the person in the video, my horse is like,
the amount of times I have done that and just gotten so frustrated with, isn't that hilarious? Oh my Lord. And really, like, again, credit to Gary Douglas, because I was listening to something he said the other day, and he's like, you know, how many people think horses need this constant repetition? Like, you've got to do the same thing over and over. I mean, the horse gets it in seconds, and we're still trying to show them the thing that they're like, dude, I got it. I got what you're trying to ask me. We're just trying to be like the person on the video, or trying to be like this person that, whereas the horse is like, hey, I've got it. And if tomorrow we want to try and get even better at this, let's keep practicing, but not from this place of like repetitiveness, this place of like, oh, we found this inroad to this new whatever, like capacity or skill or something like that. Now let's build and grow on that, and more from this place of like truly that question of what else is possible here. And exactly like you said, like what can my horse show me? What can show up today that I never even have been willing to ask for, or never even been willing to kind of think was possible in a way.
Exactly. I know, actualizing the impossible. So
Yeah.
you can even think about like all the things that you think are impossible for you or with your horse, or people that in that Saudi class, like some people had never even been around a horse. And one gentleman in the class was terror, like actual real terror of even being like around the horse. And slowly through like invitation, no judgment, humor, and total play with it all, he eventually was able to, you know, touch the horse and back away, and then eventually lead the horse by himself around an arena. And you could just tell that a lot of that fear had disappeared. So like him even going to the class, being in front of, he was the only guy in the class, being in front of, you know, a bunch of women and Who knows what was going through his head, but he was so sweet. I'm like, ah, you are braver than you even know, sir.
Yeah.
And taking that leap, being willing to be judged, being willing to just relax and have fun with it and receive contribution from everybody was like, that was definitely something that was impossible in his world, and he wasn't really thinking about probably even doing that, and a possibility that the horse and I got to see in him to invite him to. He took the action to do it, and now he doesn't have, like, he is changed. The
Yeah.
impossible has changed.
Yeah, yeah. And like how, because impossible is such an open word. Like for everyone, it's going to be different for what their impossible is. And even in different parts of their lives and like different pieces
Right.
of their lives. Yeah. And what if it was truly this place now of being like, what if everything was possible? So actualizing what isn't possible or what's impossible, how much can that bring about possibilities in our world? And really always having that target, like you said, or steering your ship in that direction towards possibilities, not like, oh, this is impossible, I'm afraid of horses, shut down, shut down, shut down. It's like, okay, what do I see is impossible here that today could actualize as true possibility for me?
Yeah, that's amazing. You can ask for
Yeah.
anything.
Anything. Oh my God. And like I've told this story a few times on this podcast as well, but it made me think because this ask and receive thing as well, like there's such a power to that, to being willing to ask for something and then let go of it, but also knowing that you're willing to actually receive that. So it's not like I'm going to ask for $1 billion, because at this point in time, I know I would, it would, my world would not really continue to exist if I received $1 billion. Like I know in my world, that's not something I can receive right now. So being like, oh, I've been asking for $1 billion to show up, but it's so incongruent with what you're asking for. But also this place of like when you ask for something that's truly something that you're willing to receive. And the first really cool experience I had of this was when I asked for my first horse in Costa Rica, and this was going back, geez, I must have had him now for at least 6 years, maybe 6 or 7 years.
Had 2 years for
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah, exactly. um, yeah, and I remember asking for him in this class, and Dane was inviting people to ask for things that were really big, but for me, it was so congruent in my world right then that that was what I was ready to ask for and receive, and it was literally the same. I think it was like 3 weeks later, I got this scratchy little video and a message from Claudia, who takes care of a lot of stuff for us in Costa Rica and, runs El Lugar there in a lot of ways now as well, saying, hey, I think we found a horse for you. And like just this impossibleness that was in my world coming to actualization. And I was like, wow, that
Yeah,
tool is something that is just so powerful. Yeah.
truly. Yes.
Yeah.
Especially the horse that I got in Costa Rica too, he just kind of showed up as if by magic also. Definitely don't ask for a horse in Costa Rica or a horse in general. I hear so many crazy stories. Like basically everyone around me has at least one horse that was just given to them as if by
Yeah.
magic.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I had seen everyone have horses in Costa Rica, and I was like, that'd be really fun. And it wasn't out of proof. I think that's one of the biggest things is like if you're asking out of judgment or trying to prove your worth or prove something, or if you're asking out of need, any kind of judgment, being right or to not be wrong, it might
Yeah.
not work so well. I mean, you'll still get what you're asking for eventually. It just takes the universe a little bit more oomph to get you what you're asking for. But I was like, that'd be fun. I don't have the money yet. This is years ago. Like, I don't even know what I would do why would I want a horse in Costa Rica? But I would like that. Like, what would it take someday? And maybe just like a year or two later, right before COVID, I didn't know the world was going to shut down. A lady called and asked like, hey, I'm trying to sell my horse in Costa Rica. I really don't have, I probably won't be going there much anymore. I don't have the time. I just don't go there as much as I wanted to. Would you be willing to buy him? And I was like, oh, yes. I'm like, how much is he? Because at that time I didn't really have any extra money. I was like, oh my God. She's like, well, I bought him for 7,000. I'm like, I don't have you just called me. The world's kind of crazy. I don't really have $7,000. I'm like, what could I offer her? I'm like, hey, horse, his name's Orion. I was like, Orion, if you want to own me, if you want me to be with you, if I'm the girl for you, make it obvious. And if not, I promise I will help you get an owner, whatever. I was like, all right, what do I got? I'm like, no offense, I am not trying to make you like dishonor you, but I have like $1,000 I can give you right now. I'll take over the monthly payments. That's what I can offer. Otherwise, I'll help you sell this horse. And she's like, well, give me a minute to think about this. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, it was a win-win. um, so she called back, or she texted a couple hours later, later, all right, I'll do it. You got it. I was like, great, what's your Venmo? So I Venmoed over $100,000. And then I had this horse. The world shut down, but it was still such a joy to contribute and receive from this horse, even though I didn't see him or meet him for 3 years. And then, I finally met him, maybe when have we been able to do stuff? Like a year.
Whenever that was.
October, finally. And now, we get to go to Costa Rica all the time, like every other month, basically. And I get to ride this, thank God, thank universe, thank me for knowing, beautiful horse that has my back and teaches me how to ride all the time. So, people will judge you, never buy a horse you haven't ridden. And it's like, I have, this miracle, this instant actualization stuff, this actualizing the impossible. You don't have to follow the rules when you're asking. And in fact, it works a lot better when you don't. Just like a horse can, learn something in one day by whatever, by following the energy, by being it. You can do the same thing by asking and allowing it to show up in that moment when it's ready to like explode or blossom.
And the thing I loved about that story as well is asking the horse for contribution. Like, how often do we ask for things and think it's like this one-way street of like, I'm asking for it, like similar to the women in Saudi thing. Like when you have this target or this goal, it's like, okay, well, to get there, I need to do this, I need to do this. But also this ask and receive and actualization of the impossible. And especially, I mean, we're talking about horses, so using them as an example, like where you can ask them to contribute to you as well, like actually receiving the contribution of your ask from the thing that you're asking for, which seems so, I don't know, strange in a lot of ways, but to have that conversation with the horse and be like, hey dude, like I'm here and I would love to be your person, but I need a little help here, like, can you contribute to this happening if that's what's going to create more for you? And then from there, it's also like, it's not just that they contribute to the ask actualizing, but they contribute then to like the future of your, like, whatever you want to call it, relationship journey. And like it becomes this thing that from the very beginning you're kind of in it together until it changes again. And obviously sometimes horses go on to find other owners or other things happen, but this horse becomes part of the conversation. It's not just like, I now own you and this is your lot in life. It's like the horse is part of that.
Wouldn't that be boring?
I know, right?
Like, oh,
this is my horse and I ride it and this is what we do. And I'm like, really?
I think I used to have that point of view.
I think a lot of people do. Yeah.
Right. I had no idea, I didn't know why I even got into horses. I'm like, I just remember being obsessed when I was a kid and was like, let's find out. But like as an adult, without the, the constant horse thing in between, and then choosing to do horses, 8 years ago or something, to be with horses and engage with them, even just starting, I was like, all right, what is this magic gift of horses? Or I don't even know if I asked that, but I'm like, what would it take to play with horses and, make money from it too? And so I started to engage with horses and found out that they have different personalities. Those personalities change every day. They're capable of different things. Like my horse in Costa Rica, he will fake being injured always the second day that I'm there. I'm like, do you think I'm not going to work on you, like on your body? Because
to try and get you to work on him. He's like, if I if I'm lame a little bit, she'll come and touch me. It's like, dude,
every
I'm
time.
going to do that anyway.
First I was worried and I was like, you know, you go into panic. I'm
I've
like,
done something wrong or something's wrong. Yeah. It's like,
I was like, this is
well,
the third time I've almost killed you. I'm like, are you faking? You're faking it. Oh my God.
and it's so true. Like also where when they're with people like us, people that I think come from, this place of question and whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then you see the horse start to like actually blossom. Like my mare at home, when I got her, she was like this. And she's sweet as, and she's so quiet. But man, she will just like, if I'm doing something to her body she doesn't like, she will swing around like teeth bared at me.
Oh my
Like
God.
most people would be like, oh my God, you're hurting that horse or whatever. I'm like, dude, that is Willow. She is like so clear now about don't touch me there. I'm like, dude, well, I need to touch you here because I'm actually doing something to contribute to your body. But she'll come around like teeth bared at me, like, I'm going to bite your arm off. I'm like, dude, whatever. And then like 2 minutes later, she's yawning and licking me and like,
Oh,
but
you
she
were
just has
right.
this like spice. She has this spice to her that I'm like, I don't think anyone's invited you to show that side of yourself. Like, because most people, a horse turns and bites you, they're going to hit the horse or they're going to reprimand the horse for doing it. And I'm like, that's my horse. Why should she not be allowed to express herself in that way? And I mean, that's probably exacerbated more because over the years, people have yelled at her for doing that. And she's like, all I want to do is be able to like get my teeth and my mouth onto things. And people are like, that's disrespectful. You're biting. And I'm like, dude, bring it on. If you need to turn around and bare your teeth at me, go for it, sister.
Yeah, that is so cool. That makes me like, oh, because
Yeah.
so many horses aren't able to express themselves exactly like you said. And
Mm.
when a horse can't communicate how it knows how to communicate, it's often termed a bad horse or a dangerous horse. And so
Yep.
cool that you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is how my horse talks right now.
Yeah. And I
Or
know,
you can
like,
learn,
and I know it'll keep changing, right?
yeah.
Because if you invite them to be themselves and be like, hey, show me what's going on. Like, I would rather you tell me how this is making you feel than just lock yourself down and be like, oh, the humans are touching me. I need to just pretend everything's okay. Because most people approach a horse with that complete, like, I am now here to do this to you. You have no say. The only say you have is to stand there and behave yourself
Yeah.
and take it. It's like, but would you, if someone tied you to something and started doing things to you, what if you wanted to like express yourself in a different way? I think it's just hilarious, this expectation. But the cool thing about it is when you just shift that a little bit and you just start looking at like things through this different set of eyes and set of glasses, that the horse will open up a world of communication to you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear a little bit more about Saudi before we wrap up. So the horses there, were they all Arabs? Were they all Arabian horses? Is that the only breed or?
No, there was some other breeds, and some of them were definitely like upper class and different lower class and all kinds of
Yeah.
different things. It was really, really cool because I didn't know, like we had the class in the front and in the back there was a breeding program, and it was beautiful, like so many babies too. I'm like, wow. So they had an Arabian horse and her name was Black Queen, and
Oh.
I also had a stereotype about Arabian horses just from the
Yep.
videos of them like literally looking like dragons and like being crazy. And some of the videos that I've seen of them, I'm like, I don't know if I could ever handle a Arabian horse or want one or whatever. But going there and meeting this one horse, Black Queen, it's probably in Arabic, but they translated it for me. And um she was just, you could tell, like so present with the class. We didn't really get to work with her too much because the owners didn't know us. This is, I think it was a very expensive horse, but she was so present and she was able to have her head out with us almost the whole time. And slowly but surely, people got to interact with her. And again, the people that were scared, she was really present, which can be really scary to people. But, everybody started melting. She started melting more into us. The people started melting more into her. And by the end, she was like the cuddliest,
Wow.
a lot of horses don't cuddle, but she did. Like
Nice.
cuddling, and we ended up being able to do body processes on her and stuff. But that horse, changed my mind and my world about Arabian horses. And I'm like, okay, I want an Arabian horse now. And
Right.
there was a museum there that was all about horses and the history, and they don't need as much, food and water, and they just like live in the desert. The original OGs were got them across, camels and horses got them to where they are now in that land. And wow, they are the gangsters of the desert, man. They're amazing.
That is so cool. Yeah, I think from a young age, Arabs were one of the breeds that I really revered a lot. Like seeing them in books, and they oil up their faces, and they've got like that super high crested neck, and they're like,
Yes.
and like even in Australia, they're a very common breed in Australia as well. We have them a lot here. I guess they would suit a lot of our hot climate as well, but they're used here as endurance horses. So they're very much used from that side of things because they can literally just go and
Go.
go and go and
I
go.
knew none of this until a couple days ago.
Well, there you go. That's what horses show us. That is so cool. And like, is there any other little like tidbits from the class? Like, I love the story about the guy, coming there with this impossible dream of, not walking away, not being afraid of horses anymore. Like, were there any other moments in the class that you can remember where people really, I saw some of the pictures and it just looked
It was
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of the class, I was like, oh my gosh. And this doesn't happen in many classes, so don't worry. But two people fell off in a row doing the trust exercise. And I was like, oh my God. But it was such a gift. And, really everybody is asking for things. And when you're asking a horse to facilitate you and vice versa, especially in a conscious horse, conscious rider class, all kinds of things can show up, and it's all part of your particular journey. So, we didn't know these horses and blah, blah, blah. And it was time to get on the horse bareback. And I was like, are they used to people bareback or not? Or who knows? Is this going to work? Yes. Okay. I asked. So I decided to get on the horse first to show everyone, hey, you can do this. Got on the tallest, biggest horse, and thinking the smaller, seemingly not super hyper half dead horse down there was going to be just fine. Got on the big horse and, showed everyone this is something you can try. And so, the first person got on the little horse, and she also, got
Tensed
scared.
up.
Yep, she tensed up. She held on. Everybody, projected the fear, and the horse was like, "What do I do?"
Dragging on my back.
Like everyone is scared, so me too. And so she fell off, and it was so beautiful, and she kept talking about it for days afterwards, and still just how much that changed. How much she's like, I guess I realized, it doesn't actually hurt to fall. I didn't know that. And this kind of shows up everywhere in my life, like especially like with my family. Good thing I'm not using names. Especially with my family or like relationships or anything, I'll try something and I'll either like quit before I do it, or I'll like ruin it. Like it'll all fall apart, which I thought was really making me, which I thought really actually hurt. But now that I think about it, it doesn't. And I just keep trying. I'm like, and then the next person, everyone was like,
because it's happened once now. It's happened once, so now everyone's got all of these.
No one has been on not no one, but not many people in the class had really ever been on a horse, and they're like, that's what's gonna happen. I'm like, okay. And then the second person got on and she was like, I'm doing it. I'm brave. Got on the horse that I got on. She knew it was going to be fine. And then the horse, like walked her off. I'm like, but she tumbled off and was like, that was so fun. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad you thought that was fun. Thank you. And so I was like, you know what? Let's really acknowledge the energy that's up right now. We all have projections of fear that we're going to fall off, and whatever you think, whatever your point of view is, especially with the horse, you'll often create some version of that. So let's really take all of our expectations, projections, and decisions on all of that fear and just destroy it. So we really were present with it and destroyed it. I got back up on to show the horse wasn't broken.
Okay.
And after that, almost everybody, got on the horse or just acknowledged, not for me, but I'm like, even that. And one lady also, sorry if I'm going forever, but
No,
good.
I knew when we started this one was not going to be a 30-minute one. So
they all did it their own way, and they were on the horse. You can see in the pictures, like spreading their arms open. I'm like, don't be afraid to move on the horse. And another beautiful lady, she was like, I want to get on. There's something off. I'm not sure, if I trust my body or what, and I was like, you know what? If you were going to do it your way and we didn't exist, how would
yep.
you choose to do this? How would you do it? And she's like, can I just lean over and hug the horse? I'm like, yes. So, she leans over, hugs the horse. You could feel the whole universe shift and change around her. And I was like, oh my gosh, she just taught me so much. Like, wow. Like, if you were going to do it your way, if there were no YouTube videos, trainers, whatever, competitions on the exact way, right way to do your horse, how would you do it? And so
Yep.
that's what showed up for her that day. And who knows what will show up afterwards. You don't know, but you get to keep choosing and changing and just being present with where you're at that day, if
Yep.
you like to. So it was just an
That's
amazing.
amazing.
I could
Yeah.
go on
And
forever.
no, well, we can talk a little longer, but I just wanted to acknowledge there as well, because this exercise that we do in the conscious horse class, we call it the trust exercise, because you basically hop on a horse bareback, you lay over the back of the horse, and it's about finding this place of trust, but it's not about blind faith. Like, how many people actually have this definition of trust being that, oh, I'm just going to do it and everything will be okay? Like, that is not what trust is. Trust is about trusting that whatever shows up in that situation, you're going to gain awareness from. Whatever is up, the energy wise of that is probably going to actualize into, more awareness. And yeah,
Yeah.
and I just love that. And I think anyone that teaches you about horses should teach you that you're gonna fall off them. I mean, you're up on this big animal and shit goes wrong sometimes. Like, I've been taking some lessons with a lady. I mean, I haven't fallen off a horse. Well, actually, it hasn't been that long. My horse bucked me off probably, I don't know, a couple of years ago. But and you learn to fall off a horse safely. But this riding teacher that I have, she's amazing. She's like, Sarah, the first thing I teach young kids is how to fall off a horse properly. Like, if you're gonna fall and you feel like you're gonna fall in a way that's safe for you. Fall in a way that don't clamp on and like grab reins and stirrups, and because then you're going to flip. Things are going to get so much worse. So it's about trusting that whatever comes out of that situation, that you're going to gain a fucking heap load of awareness from it. And that's really what's so invaluable in this world. Is we're always so caught up in like, oh, what did I do wrong, or what went wrong there? It's like, hey, what did I actually learn from this? What did I gain from this situation? And like you said with the first girl, over the days she was looking at everywhere in her life that she uses this trust as like blind faith, or when she falls down she blah blah blah, and like it creates this pocket of something that expands into everything and just changes it all. So yeah.
Wow. I'm like,
yeah,
I just love this whole conversation so much, and how you explained everything just now. I'm like, perfect.
yeah. And I mean, like, the thing I love about conscious horse, conscious rider classes, or even just horses in general, like, it's not that you have to get to a class, and I would strongly urge you to do that, but you don't have to. Like, it's also just like, where can you get around a horse and ask them a question? Like, there's so many tools from even this one podcast to get around a horse and ask some questions and ask them to show you whatever that is that you're asking to have more awareness of, that you're asking to have more of in your life. Like, truly, where they are this total gift of constant contribution. Wherever we're willing to receive from a horse, they're willing to contribute probably, a billion times more than we're willing to receive, but they'll give us everything that we will receive. They're like, do you want a bit more? Do you want a bit more? I've got more. I can show you more. And it's like, yeah. So anything else, okay, so what about for you? Like, if you could, like, was there, and I know you've covered a lot, so anything else about that class? Like, was there anywhere where you saw, and I know you've highlighted it already, but almost like where there was a tool that people took from a horse class and really had a place to apply it in real life, like in everyday life, when they're not around horses anymore for a long time? Or
gosh, like, the whole class. But
I know, right? Yeah.
right. You know, actually one of the coolest things, and some of the girls were calling and texting afterwards, and you know, I don't know what this tool would be called, but basically engaging, like how she's like, you know, I've been told that I am an aggressive person. I was like, are you aggressive or are you just really present? And I was like, she's like, well, can I have some help with this? I'm like, well, what if every person that you encountered, you treated as if they were a different horse? So some horses you can walk right up to, some don't really have a big point of view, and others you have to actually like relax, not look them straight in the eye because you're the predator, they're the prey, you know, that makes them like, is a lion trying to eat me? Maybe look at their feet, maybe come at them sideways and relax and expand out. And so, you know, unless you want to scare these people or these horses, there is definitely a time and place for that
That's a
too.
choice. That's a choice.
And so, you know, the engagement of
Wow.
relaxation and modulating your energy with the horse so that you guys kind of have a meeting place for your energies, not the separate I am person, I am horse, but two totally different energies that can be in communion with each other, and practicing that wherever you go.
Oh man, I love that so much. Thank you. Because this is also, and it's always how it works, something that I'm really looking at in my own world, like engaging with people, and where our energy is such an influence over the people that we're around. It's really our choice to choose like how we present ourselves in a way. And I love that example with horses. And because so many people say to me, exact same thing. People think I'm intense. People, I find myself shutting down around certain people or something like that. And using that example of like, imagine every person is like a different horse that you're dealing
Yeah.
with. Like, learn to read the energy and read the situation. And then, like you said, that modulation where it's not about shutting yourself down, it's not about making you less, it's about reading that situation and looking at it from a question of like, what can I be in this situation to create something greater, or even as much as like manipulating that situation to get the results that you want, which
Yes,
with horses a lot of the time it is that
to.
as well. Like, they're perfect, they love to be manipulated, horses. Like, I
Yeah.
will manipulate my horses, and whatever that looks like for them. I've heard a lot of really good horse trainers say things like only ask yes questions, or like don't put your
Right.
horse in a situation where it wants to say no to you. Like, you're kind of the symphony master in a way. You're the one that's like not controlling the situation, but definitely the one that's kind of directing it in a way. And what if we saw ourselves as that level of power and potency in everyday life? It's like, you
And
know, I'm
leadership, like
conscious.
the
Yeah,
possibility. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The conscious and the aware ones, where it's like, rather than using that to be whatever, it's like, what if we use these capacities that we have to actually create, I don't know, like a better and bigger and greater world?
Driving in Riyadh, driving in Saudi Arabia, or,
Exactly, exactly.
having a horse do the impossible, or choose what invitation can you be so that the horses can choose what has been impossible for them. And so
Totally.
exactly what you're talking about, manipulating them into possibilities,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
with people in general, or not ease with the people that they choose, and ease with finding those people or whatever it is.
Yeah, and ease with yourself when you're like, you look at a situation and you're like, okay, is this going to work? Probably not. Okay, so then, I get to be okay with that. I get to be okay with everything because I'm aware of it and I'm just willing to be in this question. And, when you're with a horse and they do something, quote unquote, that is this, and it could be anything, like the guy leading the horse for the first time, like that
Right.
in itself, like where he sees now this place where he is powerful enough to influence this big animal to just follow him. Like, even just something like that, where,
So
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'd say, what you just said too about the when your horse isn't doing what you want, or people aren't doing what you want or anything. My horse at home, Lily, she is so good at this, because if she doesn't want to do something, again, the target, I'm like, she will not. She's like, nope, you're not being you, or whatever it is. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'll have to, you know, play a game or play. Actually, I just have to go straight to play. And that starts to melt the barriers of the I don't want to do anything. So playing, or I'd say I've been able to, and you too probably, like with the tools of CHCR and just being that energy of play, but really just getting to know the horses, I've been able to do things or have things show up or get the halter on the 6-month-old when nobody else could or whatever, just because I engage, hang out, and get to know the horses, or I acknowledge their being, or I just melt and into their worlds and allow them to melt into mine. So just that, you know, simple tool of melting, and whatever you want to call it, engaging but without an agenda, will help you to get those asks also for the future. The future.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And just being that blank slate in every situation. And horses love that. Like, even if it's your horse you see every day, like your horse at home and my horse is at home, I don't approach them and be like, okay, you're the same horse you were yesterday. It's like, hi, like, what's up in your world today? And even with people, like, you pass people all the time when you're checking into your hotel or you're at the supermarket or something like that. Like, what if it was, because I think as well, when you're willing to just go in with that, hi, like, where are you at today energy, like, it's just that thing. It's almost like it would equate to spending, 5 hours getting to know that person or that horse. Like, you can almost do that leap ahead where most people, and one thing I would strongly recommend is, if you're going to be around certain horses, really spend time with them, not doing anything, like just sitting there, being with them, pretending you're a horse. Like, I'll just sit with my horses when they're eating and like lay in the grass, or like just be with them. So then you sort of change that dynamic again. But there's also such a space when you first encounter a horse, and it works so well with other animals and people, that if you come in from that really blank slate and that openness and that question, it's almost like you jump into having known them already for a day or a week or a year or whatever that is too. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be so nice if everybody did that? I'm like, if someone like was to say hello and actually like be curious about how I was today, rather than expecting me to be a certain way and me having to the best of my ability, be that for them. Like, if everyone just had no expectation of you, no expectation of what you were supposed to be that day, but really present with who you were that day, wouldn't that just be a lovely place? What would it take? Let's do it.
And that, to me, that's true caring. Like, it just feels like we would live in a world of really, truly caring people. And it doesn't mean you've all got to be friends, because some days you might be in a place where death to everyone and I want to kill and stab you all. But then it would be okay. It would be like, okay, she's having like a moment of like, so you just acknowledge in that moment. And it's not this kumbaya of like everyone now is best friends, but it's this kindness and this deep sense of caring for that being in that very moment, and wherever they're at. And I just love that.
I know.
What would it take? Actualizing the impossible. That's our ask, to live in a world where we have that level of kindness and caring for everyone, as well as all of the horses and the animals that we share this amazing planet with.
Oh my God. That is awesome. I wonder what will show up.
Yes. Well, we've asked for it. So
let's still ask, like, for real.
Yeah. Hello, universe. We're putting it out there. Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for being on my podcast again. And I would love for you to come on again sometime in the near future. And I will probably see you at some point today, definitely tomorrow, and we can hug in real life, which is also very awesome. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll post some of Alison's contact details so you can get hold of her if you're interested in knowing more. Also, the website showing all of the upcoming Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider classes around the world. And above all else, I think the both of us would like to invite you to the world from a place of joy of horses. How much more joy can we have in our lives having horses as part of them? So thank you again. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I can't wait to see you. Thank you. This was awesome.
So cool. Bye, everyone. And stop recording. Thank you, my love.